Thank, thank you. Can you hear me well? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Tara. Thank you very much, everybody. We are Carmen Mangiron and Maria Eugenia Mel, for friends, so all of you can call her Mel. La Reina from Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. And we feel a little bit like the odd ones out, because we come from an academic background. We also come from a humanities and social science background. So we're not developers or anything like that, but we are very interested and keen on game accessibility, and we work a lot on it from a user's perspective. So what we are going to be presenting today, Tara explained it already. So it's the results of this survey. Sorry, I don't know how to. The slide, sorry.
No, it's my bad. I set you up for failure.
No, it's me. If anything can go wrong, it's me. It's Murphy's Law. And I know this is like preaching to the converted, but just to contextualize, of course, we always cite Yuan et al. When we talk about accessibility barriers or issues when you're interacting with a game. So, for example, in the case of blind or low vision users, if you cannot receive the stimuli of the game, you will, because it's only, for example, in text or in visuals, you won't be able to determine what response to give to the game, and you won't be able to provide any input. Although, of course, these barriers also apply, for example, determining the response. It could also be for neurodivergent people who might receive the stimuli, but they do not know because the tutorial is too difficult, or the level is too, there's no tutorial practice mode, for example, and they don't know what to do. Or, for example, people with reduced mobility, they might not be able, they receive the stimuli, they know what to do, but if you have to press many buttons at the same time or very fast, they won't be able to provide input. So these are some of the main barriers when we interact with the video game that are, as you all know, often unintended, and that what we need to do is try to overcome them. And of course, you all know and you all agree, and it's great, because usually in our field of study, we're always, the video game people are the kind of the strange ones, the late in the afternoon, you know, in all conferences. So it's great to be talking to people who believe in the same. So we're going to be focusing, we've been working on game accessibility for blind and low vision players, and more specifically in audio description. When we started working on this, like Xiaoxun Zhang, who's the only other, I think, academic that I know in the room, and I already in 2016 started saying in a paper, we should have audio descriptions in video game. I know many other people have mentioned this as well in the industry, but when we started this project that we'll be talking about in 2019, there were no games with AD. But now, luckily, Ian was mentioning this yesterday, we have quite a few. Since 2020 was a landmark, because Ubisoft started audio describing their trailers, which is great, but if you don't have then the audio description in the game, it's not going to help you to play it. And then, of course, we have as well The Last of Us 1 remake in 2022. Sorry, September was the first video game that had audio description and cinematics. We now also have Spider-Man, Forza Motors, as you all know. Then Mortal Kombat with the fatalities, which is great, and the audio description is as horrifying as the visuals, you know, it's really good. So I think you can get a really good experience by seeing it. And you know, I haven't shown it to my students yet, because I'm not sure if somebody's going to complain, but because it's so good, the audio description as the visuals. And then we also have, we're moving on, because of course, cutscenes, cinematics, audio description is the easiest, so to speak, because audio description, which Ian defined yesterday, and I'm sure you all know, but it's translating visuals into words to provide access to those who do not have access to the visuals. And it has been really researched for many years in audiovisual translation. So there are a lot of standards and good practices, but of course, now we're talking of a new medium as well. And we do not only have cutscenes, we also have, and this is the biggest technological challenge, the dynamic and interactive audio description, because each person might play a game in a different way. So I think this is the challenge that lays ahead of you all. But there are some games already introducing audio description in interactive content. So we have Brok the Investigator, which not only has for the cinematics, but also for the points of interest of the interactive objects. And then there's this simple game, Dog Dash for children, in which there's audio description, automated audio description, I think, to help you overcome the obstacles and make it. So now we're going to be talking about our project, which is very important to remember that we started doing before there was any audio description out there. And we were looking at how could we improve audio accessibility for blind and low vision players. And we started doing a literature review of game accessibility, and especially for blind players. We also started, Mel is actually doing a PhD. Like, this is a 3-year project funded by the, well, 3.5, because pandemic came in and we got an extension, but funded by the Spanish Ministry of Science. And then Mel is doing her PhD as part of this project. So she did also some research to create an analysis tool to assess the accessibility of games, not with points or anything like that, but to see what accessibility features it has, and also looking at reviews and the opinion of users, because accessibility is only as good as how useful it is to the users. And there's so many users and so many needs that you need to take that into account. It's also available in another paper, and we won't be talking about this. But anyway, so she did an analysis of that. And then we went on to what we will be presenting today, which is an online survey that was self-administered only in Spain, because this was a Spanish based project for persons with visual disabilities. And we wanted to know a lot about audio description. About the methodology, what we wanted to know was what were the needs and the preferences of people with visual disabilities, mainly blind people and low vision players, when they are playing games. And we also wanted to know, are there any blind or low vision players out there who would like to play, but are not playing because of lack of accessibility? And also, did they think that audio description could make their experience richer? And so anyway, this is what we wanted to know. And we also wanted to know what the benefits of audio description would be for these players, and also what the challenges could be for the developers or for implementing it. It ran for 3 months in 2020. This is pre-pandemic, so this Mel will tell you, but we need to take also this into account when we look at the results. And our target were persons with visual disabilities. They had to be 18 or above, because otherwise we don't get the ethics. You know, we need ethics approval from our university, and if they're minors, it's very complicated. And they had to live in Spain. We got 124 answers, which we were quite happy, but we had to rule, we couldn't reject some because they weren't, they didn't finish the questionnaire, or they were underage, or they weren't living in Spain at the time. And regarding the gaming habits, it's quite balanced. We got 58 people who were considered themselves gamers or regular players, and we got 48 non-players. And out of this, we had, you can see we put in bold the highest number. We had blind people, 58 people, and 30 of them were players, 28 weren't playing. And people with low vision, we got 48 answers. We had, there was a bit of a gender imbalance. We had the option of male, female, other gender identities, but we didn't get any other gender identities in our participant sample. And we got 74 male and 32 female, which does not really, is not in line with the latest data from AEVI, which is the Spanish Video Game Association, in which there's 52% male and 48% female. So this is not in line, but in our sample, this is what we got. And then regarding the age, the youngest participant was 18 and the oldest was 74, which we're quite happy to have got somebody answering this survey, but he was not a gamer. That's not a surprise either, but he still took the time, you know, to do the survey. And as you see, most of them were under 35. The average age was 31. And this is also in line with the average age of European players, according to the International Software Federation of Europe, and according to AEVI, which is the Spanish local organization, it's around 30. So this is in line as well with the, so basically they're gamers like any other gamer, you know, in Spain, but we got less women to answer. And regarding one of the first questions, do you think that are video games currently accessible? Surprise, surprise. Most people thought that they weren't accessible, but we 99 of them, but we got 7 people who were players who thought they were accessible. This could be because the games they play are accessible, or because they're so good at playing them that they can play FIFA. You know, even with the not reduced vision. And then the question that we also asked them: would you play to the non-players? So this was only, you know, in the survey only for non-players. Would you play games if they were more accessible? 36 people answered yes, and 8 people no, and 4 didn't bother answering. So we might take that as a no. And I think this is me. Okay, so thank you very much. And now I will hand it to Mel.
Thank you, Carmen. I will get into the specifics of the survey about the player preferences. So first we asked them what gaming platforms do they use? And just for you to have in mind, this was done at the end of 2020. So the 9th generation of consoles wasn't out yet. So the responses were more about PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch, basically. So the platforms weren't as accessible as they are now in 2024. We had most players saying that they play on PC and mobile devices. And here, if you can see that the numbers are much bigger than the number of responses we got. This is why they could, this is because they could choose different platforms. So one person could choose different answers in the survey. So this is why the number is so high. And then we asked them, why do they play in these platforms? And they linked their platform preference to the accessibility. So in this sample, we can see that our survey respondents prioritize accessibility when choosing what platform to play in. And this is not surprising, really. And we could also see that we had some players playing in consoles, but that they chose this platform because it was their preferred one. And they liked the games in this platform, even if they weren't as accessible as the ones on PC or on mobile devices. Then we asked our whole sample if they would play in any other platform if it was more accessible. And we can see that there was a huge preference for consoles. So this was definitely a pressing issue at the time in 2020. Now, luckily, we have a bit more of accessibility in consoles. And this result was also very interesting because the Royal National Institute of Blind People did a similar survey to ours in 2021, and they published the results in 2022, and they got very similar results to us. Their participants were also very interested in playing in consoles. We also asked our sample, and specifically the players, what type of games they were playing at the time, and we got many diverse preferences here. We have only put the top 5 preferred genre preferences, which are adventure games, role-play games, strategy games, racing games, and first-person shooters. But we had many people saying many different genres, up to 18. So some of them were puzzle games, sports games, and even educational games. And here the preference was more linked to their preferred games. So this had nothing to do with accessibility. And then we asked a similar question to the platform. So which genres would they play if they were more accessible? And again, we got very different results. And what we understand from this is that players with visual disabilities have a wide range of interests, just as any other player would, and every genre would benefit from more accessibility. Okay, now about the accessibility features. In this case, we didn't divide the results in players and non-players, but we did it in persons with low vision and blind persons. This information is not on the paper, so it's exclusive for this talk, and it's very interesting to see as well. We asked them what accessibility features do you use when you are playing, and blind persons told us that they would use the screen reader, sound cues, and control remapping the most, and players with low vision also mentioned changing the format of the text, the high contrast, and the screen magnifier. And then related to this, we asked them, which one would you like to use if you could use any accessibility feature? And the same ones were mentioned, but one was added, which was audio description. And this was very interesting for us because up to this point, audio description hadn't come up in the survey. So it was like spontaneously our participants said, we would like to have audio description. And as we can see, it was mainly blind players who preferred audio description, 28 mentions in this case, but also some players with low vision were interested. And then we specifically got to the survey part when we asked them about audio description. And here the results are very self-explanatory. We had 95 people saying, yes, please, we want audio description in games, and 11 people who said, no, we can use other accessibility features. We have further broken down these results into 3 different variables. So first, we asked participants if they regularly use audio description in other media. So for example, film, television, and even live performances like theater and opera. And we can see that both AD users and non-users of AD are interested in game audio description. And then we did some statistical analysis on this, and we got a statistically significant result. So just keep in mind that this sample is very small to do statistical analysis. And we also collected these answers from the internet, right? So it wasn't a significant sample in this sense. So we need further research, but just this result points to some relationship between using AD in your normal life and also wanting to have it in video games. We have also divided the results here according to the disability type, and both blind persons and persons with low vision are interested in game audio description. But here, the persons with low vision, it's true that 7 of them are not interested in audio description in video games. A bit after in the survey, we asked them why were they interested or not. And this was interesting because we had people with low vision saying, I don't usually use audio description, I don't need it, but I would like video games to have it because in this way they would be more accessible and more people could play them. So even if they don't use it, they would be interested in having it. And finally, we have also divided the results according to their gaming habits, so players and non-players. And here there are no statistically significant differences. So what we get from these results, summing up, is that apparently no matter the disability type or their gaming habits, participants are generally interested in audio description, and this would be very beneficial for them as they would be interested in using it. We also asked them why this audio description would be useful for them, and most people said that it would improve their comprehension of the narrative, the characters, and their scenarios. They also pointed to socialization, so as they could understand the action better, then they could talk to their friends about it and be part of the big community of gamers. And they also pointed to improved interaction, immersion, and orientation. And I have put here a quote by a blind player who said that audio description would allow me to socialize better with sighted persons, have something to talk about, and forget about my health problems. So they were really thinking about this socializing part and of being part of the big gaming culture. But of course, audio description has some implementation challenges, but this is very exciting for us. And we think that there is a lot of potential here for future research. We asked the players in the survey, but also in the interviews we did after. This is not published yet, but we are looking to publish a paper on this. But we asked them how would they like this audio description to be. So what kind of styling, what kind of content. And our participants were really worried about the interactive parts of the games. So just as Karma said before, how can the audio description account for all the variability in the player action, but also of the game? How can this work if the audio description is written beforehand? So they were worried about the fast-paced gameplay and that maybe a narrative description of what's going on, it's not fast enough for them to react when they need to react in quick time events, for example. And they were also worried about the open world games because how can the audio description know which way the player is facing and how can they navigate this world without any points of references? But they also offered a solution, which was that audio description is not the only accessibility feature that will improve accessibility in games, it's just another one. So audio description should work together with the features we already have. So like a screen reader and sound cues and haptics and high contrast and everything that they have, that they already use and that they would like to see more in games. And in this way, players can choose which options are more beneficial to them. And related to this, we have this technical implementation part. But as we have seen, the games that are already implementing dynamic audio description in games have also found some workarounds around it. So for example, in Brock the Investigator, when you are exploring the space and you find an interactive object, you can click on it and then the audio description will play automatically. So it's synchronized to the interactive objects of the game. So there are already some workarounds about this. And we believe that if we continue researching this, we will find more ideas and more ways to implement audio description. And finally, and this is more related to our background, so we come from the translation side, the linguistic side, is how this audio description should be like. So we have already a lot of standards in film audio description, but none in game audio description yet. And we think that maybe for the non-interactive parts, the AD style could be similar regarding how objective it should be or subjective of the level of detail. But for the interactive part, we really have no data yet. So it would be very interesting to conduct some player tests with different versions of audio description and to see what the preferences would be like. So for example, in video games, the identification with a character is much more important than in film, maybe sometimes. So maybe the description should be in the first person and not in the third person. Maybe it could be more subjective. Maybe it could provide more level of detail. And well, just all of these things that are already researched in other fields, but not in games. And something that also came up in the interviews was that the players would like to have personalization options about the audio description. So we could even have some different audio description available in the games, and then you could choose the one you would prefer most depending on your preferences. And just to mention the Royal National Institute of Blind Persons survey that I talked about before, they also asked their sample if they would like to have audio description, and they got a positive response. And their sample said that they would be interested in having an integrated audio description. So in the way that it would be the characters themselves describing the scene or each other in a way that it would be integrated into the narrative and in the dialogue. So this also opens up new narrative opportunities or storytelling opportunities in games. In the interviews, we also asked them specifically about this, and we got the same answer, that they would like it to be as immersive as possible and that the description could add to this. And just a small quote by a player with low vision who is talking about this combination of different accessibility features to improve their gaming experience. So they said that the first step to improve accessibility would be to add a screen reader for text, followed by audio description for visuals and sound cues for interaction. So it's just a combination of everything that we already have. And some final thoughts to conclude our presentation. We have seen since 2022 that the game industry has started to recognize the potential for audio description in video games. So this is already great news for us, but also for the players in our sample. And that these solutions already exist. They just need to be implemented more and more into games. And it's also very important to not forget about the quality of these accessibility features. So the audio description should be added into games, yes, but with a quality control, asking the players if it's usable or not, asking the researchers as well and the audio description professionals. And lastly, we would like to call for collaboration between the industry, the users themselves, and also research to improve game accessibility. And just a final quote from a player with low vision who said, "If you make your video game accessible, you will improve the gaming experience for all players, not just the persons with disabilities." So thank you so much for your attention. We are available to chat on Discord or in person or via email, and we are looking forward to hearing your thoughts.